Okay, here I am, getting ready to talk to you about the Delphi murders. A lot of people have talked about the Delphi murders, and they did a better job than I'm going to do. But this is specifically, a call to the families of the girls and anybody else who believes that Richard Allen is guilty as charged. I have a bunch of points I want to make. I have a bunch of things I want to say. Mainly so that I can have some peace, because ever since the verdict happened and I was watching Ali Mata and her live while her husband, Bob Mata, was at the courtroom, and I heard the verdict and I was just stunned. Couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. And here's a bunch of reasons why. And I want to start off also by saying, if you people who believe Richard Allen is guilty as charged can convince me that he is guilty as charged after I point these things out to you, I hope that you'll contact me. Go ahead and let's talk about it. But I want you to really consider these things. I know probably nobody's going to hear me, but if you do, maybe you'll think these things over. I was going to read the Todd Click letter, the Todd Click report, but I heard the great Bob Mata reading it, and I realized that I wasn't going to be able to stand in his shoes. He did it better than I could, so I'll refer you to where that is, which is Defense Diaries, which is both a YouTube channel and a podcast. And it's the Delphi Murders Part 9. Bob and Ali Mata do a great job. There's also Michelle After Dark on YouTube. She is amazing. There are others. Let's see, Lawyer Lee covered the trial, did a very good job. And there's others. I can't think of all of them. Oh, Grizzly True Crime. She's amazing. Anyway, if you can stand to listen to me, I'm just going to go ahead and point out these things. All right, right away after the murders, for some reason, cops in Rushville, which is a town 2 hours southeast of Delphi, got involved in the investigation. It was Murphy, Click, and who was the other guy? I can't think of his name right now. Anyway, yeah. So, and the reason they got involved, I believe, is because Elvis Fields, who is a grown man with the mental capacity of a 7-year-old, confessed to one of his sisters that he had been on the bridge with those girls with 2 other people when they were killed. He said that Abby was a troublemaker, and he used sticks to make horns above her head to represent antlers, and that he spat on one of the girls. Now, Elvis's sister, now he has 2 sisters, and he confessed on 2 different days to each of his sisters. This wasn't a one-off. He confessed to both of them. Elvis's sister, one of them, had to pull strings to get police to pay any attention to her brother's statements. She had to contact a friend of hers who worked in Homeland Security and say, hey, can you get the ear of somebody in law enforcement, get him to pay attention to what my brother is saying, because I think he was involved in the Delphi murders. So the police pull Elvis in. They interview him. During the interview, they take an oral swab for DNA purposes, and they explain to him why they're doing this. After the interview is over, he gets a ride home from, I think it was Detective Murphy, and he gets out of the police car, is walking to his trailer, and he starts thinking to himself, they took some DNA from me, and I spat on those girls. He walks back to the police car and he says, hey, if you find my spit on one of those girls, but I can explain it away, am I still going to be in trouble? Now, this is a guy who, like I said, he's a grown man, has a mental capacity or mental age of about 7. So I think it stands to reason that somebody who maybe has that sort of mentality is more likely to A, be truthful, and B, be a little bit naive. So I think we can put some weight behind him saying this to the police officer, especially after he confessed to both of his sisters that he had been there on the bridge when the girls were killed. There is also Brad Holder, who I believe lived in Logansport. He and Elvis Fields were both wannabes, Vinlander wannabes. The Vinlanders, you can find info on them on the Southern Poverty Law Center website. If you want to, I don't know how far you can. Anyway, the Vinlanders are a social club, and have at their core, I believe, Viking ideology, a love for the Viking aesthetic, more than the aesthetic, Viking philosophies, warrior themes. They worship, or at least pay homage to Norse gods like Odin and Thor. A man named Patrick Westphal was interviewed on, I think it was Sleuth Intuition, and he was talking about Loki, the child killer, and he stays away from people who worship Loki. Anyway, Holder and Fields, Vinlander wannabes. I don't know. I think Holder was a Vinlander. It doesn't make any difference. They're both at least satellites around this ugly planet called Vinlanders. Brad Holder especially was making this Odinist crap a part of his identity, and he was very outspoken about it on Facebook, where he posted lots of pictures of weapons and runes, which are Norse pagan symbols, that he made from sticks and drew or burned onto sticks. He posted a photo of a couple of girls posed as dead. I guess he took a couple of girls out in the woods and say, hey, I want you to lie down on the ground here and, put your arms this way, put your legs this way. Pose them as dead on the forest floor. He painted a picture of Odin hanging from a tree. Now, I believe the tree is supposed to represent the world. I don't know, but I know that this image of of Odin hanging from a tree is also called the Hanged Man, and it's found on one of the tarot cards, and it's called the Hanged Man. The way that Odin's body, or the Hanged Man, is portrayed in this image is very similar to the way that Abby Williams' body was found, with one leg bent at the knee and tucked under the other leg, and her arms basically folded up onto her chest. There is also a tarot card called the Magician, in which a person is standing with one hand pointing down, or one arm pointing down and the other pointing up. This symbolizes the as above, so below idea, which means basically what goes on up here goes on down there, I suppose, or what goes on up there goes on down here. It's kind of a pagan, not New Age, because it's very, very old, but a mystical sort of idea. Anyway, I'm not being as articulate today as I'd like to be. All right. Anyway, we've got these Vinlanders, or Odinists. The two things kind of go hand in hand. I think to be a Vinlander, you have to be an Odinist, but you can be an Odinist without being a Vinlander. You cannot be an Odinite, because then you'd be a mineral. It's a warrior religion. It's got its origins in Northern Europe. There's a lot of racism involved. It's sort of a neo-Nazi skinhead type deal. A lot of them do shave their heads. Let's see. The FBI's behavioral analysis unit was brought in to view the crime scene, and they made a report in which they said that the crime scene definitely had indications of this North mythology and runic symbols going on in it. While we're here, while we're talking about the runes, and some people might call it a ritual sacrifice. Maybe it was a ritual sacrifice. I think it was more of a half-assed kind of, hey, look at me, I'm an Odinist, I know how to make these runes sort of deal. Like, I'm really, really dedicated to Odin, and I'm going to kill somebody and drain their blood and dedicate the whole thing to Odin. It's kind of a half-baked ideology. And if this inspires in you thoughts of satanic panic and all that was going on in the late 80s and in the 90s, I'd like you to remember a little something called the Manson family murders, where some fucked up people with bizarre philosophies and bizarre beliefs killed some people based around these bizarre beliefs. This sort of thing does happen. It's not satanic panic. I hope that your knee-jerk reaction against the whole satanic panic thing will not blind you to the possibility that there was some half-baked pagan shit going on here. Maybe there was. It's ridiculous. I know it's ridiculous. But people do ridiculous shit all the time. Like jumping out of airplanes and tattooing their faces. Tattooing their private, or piercing their private parts. No offense, but that's kind of messed up. I'm sorry. People do weird stuff every day. You do weird stuff. So do I. I don't kill people. But some people do. There's also the Dutroux affair in Belgium in the mid-1990s, where multiple girls were killed, and some of the survivors of this whole thing who managed to escape say that there were satanic ritualistic things going on around these killings. There's the Matamoros killings by a drug cartel at the Texas-Mexico border. I think that was in the early 1990s, where these people actually did kill and sacrifice their victims to Satan in order to gain protection from police. And they even believed that they were invisible because they had done these things. Police came in there and they found body parts in cauldrons. There's a book about it. I think it's called Painted Black. Maybe that's a different book. I don't know. There's also the Process Church of the Final Judgment. That's kind of a shady thing you can look into. There's an excellent book called Ultimate Evil by Maury Terry, Maury Terry. And it talks about everything from the Son of Sam killings down to Best Friends Animal Society. No shade on them. But there was definitely some satanic philosophy or beliefs or sacrifice going on in all of this. Michael Aquino at the Presidio in San Francisco, an avowed Satanist, even has his eyebrows shaved to make him look more diabolical. What a weirdo. Anyway, he has been accused multiple times of deviancy concerning children, and he is a very outspoken Satanist. He separated from Anton LaVey's Church of Satan and established his own Temple of Set. I believe it was in San Francisco. So there are people who do these things and who have been found to have done these things. It's not just satanic panic. It's freaking satanic. You don't have to believe it, but they do believe it. and they act on it. Just like people have acted on their beliefs, all kinds of beliefs, throughout humanity's history. In Ezekiel chapter 8, God takes Ezekiel in the spirit to the temple and says, hey, look at these guys. They're in my temple, and they're carving stuff on the walls, carving, I don't know, little creatures on the walls, and, worshiping Tammuz, and I forget who else, but basically doing pagan rituals and things in the temple. So those are just some examples of people doing disgusting, violent, deviant things to other people in the name of they're either fully formed or not fully formed, weird, mystical, religious, spiritual ideas. Happens all the time. All right, back into the Delphi case. Taylor Hornaday believes she was Johnny Messer's ex-girlfriend. This is another one of these Vinlander Odinist turds. She says that Johnny Messer borrowed her car around or on Valentine's Day of 2017. That weekend. Valentine's Day was... it was the 14th. That was the day the girls were found. That was a Tuesday. So anyway. Do I have that right? Anyway, her car was borrowed by Johnny Messer. And she said when he brought it back, it was covered with blood on one side. She said it took her multiple car washes to get the blood all off. I don't know if anybody ever went and tried to find some of the blood on this car. Even though a car may have been washed multiple times, you can still probably find some traces of blood, maybe on the underside of the trim, because blood has a way, any liquid has a way of seeping into little nooks and crannies, and you can usually find traces of it later on. Especially in this day and age, we're pretty good at finding stuff like that. All right, so Todd Click developed a lot of this information, put it in a report. He believed so strongly in the guilt of these people that he hired himself a lawyer to help him draft a letter to the prosecutor's office, which he sent by certified mail. He wanted to make sure that the prosecutor's office got this information, and he wanted to force them to acknowledge getting it by sending it by certified mail. And he had a lawyer help him do it. Now, Bob Motta made the point pretty strongly that this is pretty unusual. This doesn't happen very often. A cop doesn't hire a lawyer to help him draft a letter to the prosecutor in order to make sure that his information that he's developed makes it to the prosecutor's ear. But that's what he did. Apparently had no effect on anything other than turning the entire court proceedings into a total farce in which none of this information was allowed to be heard by the jury. But I'm getting ahead of myself. All right. So after this, I think it was Jerry Holman had a meeting with Todd Click to put his mind at ease about Richard Allen. I am getting ahead of myself, but anyway, Richard Allen had been arrested at this point, and Holman says, "Hey, come have a talk with me. I want to put your mind at ease about Richard Allen. He really is the guy." He did not succeed in this. He didn't give Todd Click any reason to believe in Richard Allen's guilt. And the icing on this cake is Click gets up from this meeting when it's all done. He's walking out of the police station, and there, who shall he see sitting in the lobby but Brad Holder? The same Brad Holder who painted the picture of the hanged man and had these girls pose on the forest floor for him, and was showing pictures of runes and, all those different things. There's so much more to this. I'm just trying to hit the high points here. I'm sitting in my car, by the way, and I used to wonder why people did this sort of thing sitting in their car. And then I realized that A, it's the one place I can be sure I'm alone, and B, the acoustics are pretty good in a car. At least in my car, I think they're okay. I don't like the sound of my own voice, and I don't blame you if you don't like it either. I'm a little bit nervous doing this. I haven't ever done anything like this before, and I don't intend to become a YouTuber or a podcaster, but I have to speak out because I can't get any peace. I think about this all the time. It's unhealthy. I have a life. I have things going on. I have stuff to do. I pray for Richard Allen every day. I pray for God to protect him and to set him free. I pray that he'll have a successful appeal and that he will be able to walk around in public with his head held high because the bad guys are exposed and punished. I know that right now Richard Allen can't walk around with his head held high if he were released today because everybody still thinks he did it. So keep listening. All right. Early on in the investigation, police said they believed that more than one person was involved in this crime. As soon as they arrested Richard Allen, they pretty much stopped saying that. Suddenly, yeah, Richard Allen, he could have done all this by himself. Sure, why not? Now, Richard Allen's lawyers, when they released the Franks memorandum, they went to great pains to point out that one person could not have done all that was done in terms of moving the bodies and redressing them. I mean, they went to painful pains about this, talking about, Richard Allen would have had to, put the left leg in the pants, and then he would have had to put the right leg in the pants, and it just went on ad nauseum, which I'm trying not to do here. Sorry about my voice. I'm not used to this, and I'll try not to sniffle anymore. Anyway, Richard Allen is a little guy. He's just a little guy. I remember when I first saw on Facebook or wherever it was, bridge guy arrested. And then I thought, oh, great, finally. And then I saw a picture of Richard Allen. I said, no, they got the wrong guy. He's too little. Even if the bridge guy video it turns out to be totally irrelevant to these murders, which I doubt, but if it did, I still don't think that Richard Allen could possibly be the perpetrator in this case, especially not the lone perpetrator. He's 5'4". He's just 1 inch taller than me, and most people are taller than me. He's just a little guy. I could probably take him. Sorry about that. So his small stature makes it especially unlikely that he would be able to, even with a gun, control both of these girls, and, even after, especially after they're dead, because the bodies were moved, because there was not a lot of blood. I mean, Abby was completely drained of blood. The blood had run up from her throat towards her face, meaning that she was upside down or inverted to some degree at some point. Meanwhile, I don't know what was going on with Libby. I mean, I don't know if they couldn't have been killed at the exact same moment. Maybe they could if there was more than one person, but think about it logically. Both of these girls had their throats slashed. Abby was drained of blood. Or at least there was no blood on her. Think about that. How are you going to slash somebody's throat, and I think she was also stabbed in the heart, and not have blood everywhere? Those arteries in the throat are, the main thoroughfare to the blood going to your brain. They're very important. There's a lot of blood moving through there every second. You can't cut those arteries and not have blood splashing and spraying everywhere. I mean, it's kind of ghastly, but think it through. Think through how, as a murderer, you would go about doing what was done to those girls. You really think a 5'4" man could do this by himself? Talk to me. Say something if you really think that he could have. Let's talk about it. I do have a master's degree in forensic science from George Washington University. I have not worked in law enforcement. because I wound up doing other things with my life, which were much better for me. But I've thought a lot about these things. I often thought if I ever wound up being privileged enough to teach a class in forensic science, my one and only assignment for that class, or crime scene analysis would be, plan out for me on paper the perfect murder. Give me every little detail of everything you're going to do. How are you going to do it? How are you going to dispose of the evidence and the body so I can't catch you? That would be my dream assignment if I could give it to people studying crime scene investigation or forensic techniques. Think about it. Think about how you're going to go about carrying out this crime. And leave the scene the way it was left, with these sticks arranged in a peculiar way on these bodies. The sticks were not little sticks. They were kind of big, some of them anyway, and one of them was sawn neatly on one end. Maybe that was found on the ground there. Maybe it was brought. I don't know. In any case, these sticks were very deliberately placed on these girls in a very deliberate way. Some have said that they represent runes, or that the sticks form runes. I don't know. Maybe you know. In any case, somebody who is hurriedly trying to hide these bodies, which now, being drained of blood or nearly drained of blood and dead, are going to be lily white against the forest floor, which is covered with leaves because it's February and all the leaves have fallen. So there's these two white girls, very pale, on the forest floor. You're going to cover them with branches to conceal them? That's pretty dumb. I mean, you could have easily just scooped up a couple armloads of leaves from the forest floor and put them over the girls. And then if you wanted to secure the leaves so they didn't blow away in the wind, maybe put some branches on top of the leaves. But just branches? Come on. I mean, even if Elvis Fields did this crime by himself with the mental capacity of a 7-year-old, I don't think he would have done that. That's just dumb. Anyway, I don't want to go on and on about that. Let's see, little points here that I wrote down. Richard Allen's statement of when he had been on the trails that day was changed by Tony Liggett to match the crime flow. I'm not going to back that up because, like I said, I'm sitting in my car. But if you poke around on the internet, you can find documentation of that. The bullet casing, that's the little brass dealie that flies out of your gun when you fire a bullet, lands on the ground, was not found, I believe, until after Richard Allen was arrested. And it could easily have been planted, or it could have just been there randomly. I think people do hunt in that area. It's a pretty large wooded area. Like I said, I did study forensic science, and I do remember clearly learning about lands and grooves on bullets, but I don't remember anything ever being mentioned about tool marks or identifying characteristics being left by ejection from a weapon on a bullet casing. I don't remember hearing about that having any sort of evidentiary value at all. I went to a really good school. I had professors who were retired FBI and CIA guys. They never mentioned any of that. Oh, and I got straight A's, by the way. Let's see. Richard Allen had no criminal history. He had no indications of ever being a pedo. There was nothing incriminating found on any of his devices. Nothing even, weird. If you look at my devices, you're going to find some weird stuff because I have a morbid fascination with anything even faintly macabre. Faintly Macabre. That's from my favorite childhood book, Phantom Tollbooth. Anyway, Probably on your devices, there's some pretty weird shit. All people are weird. Except my mom. She's not weird at all. But most of us are weird. Most of us, once in a while, we do look up something weird. Richard Allen, not so much. Didn't look up, I don't know. Anyway, there was nothing on his devices that would have caused people to think, oh, this guy's into some weird stuff. He thinks about weird stuff. I think about weirder stuff probably than he ever did. Like, for instance, the Delphi murders. Okay, the Franks motion filed by Baldwin and Rosie. That is a maneuver used by attorneys to counter a search warrant that was obtained using lies. The police lied to get their search warrant. That was a big deal. Now, after Richard Allen was arrested for this crime, he was not held in jail. He didn't pass go or collect $200. He was taken directly to prison, not jail. Think about Andy Griffith. People in that little jailhouse, right? That's a jail. That's where you go before your trial. You don't go to prison. Prison is where you go after you've been convicted of a crime and sentenced. Richard Allen did not go to jail. He went to prison. And he was held in solitary confinement for 13 months. Well beyond the legally established guidelines. Well beyond the limits. It was mentally destructive for him. He actually became psychotic. When he became psychotic, he didn't hurt anybody else. He hurt himself by eating his own shit. I love how people always say he ate his own shit. Like that's worse than eating somebody else's shit. But anyway, I guess we feel the need to specify. But he did that, and he smeared it on himself, and he drank water out of the toilet. And I gotta say, maybe you can say that he was trying to pretend to be crazy by doing these things, but think about, really, next time you go take a dump, how willing would you be to reach in there and eat some of that? To convince people that you're nuts. Especially, you're already in solitary confinement. The guards watching over you are not sympathetic to you. They're not going to look through the little peephole and say, oh, he's eating his own shit, by golly. Call the shrink, because anybody who would do that has to be nuts. We must have been wrong about this guy. No. Those guards don't care. They think you're guilty anyway. And while we're on the subject of the guards, Richard Allen was being guarded by correctional officers who wore patches with Odinist symbology on them. One patch had a set of interlocking triangles, which is a Norse thing, an Odinist thing. I think one of them was wearing a Thor's hammer. Maybe it was a pendant, like a necklace. One of them had a patch that said, "In Odin we trust," and one of them wore a patch that said, "I hate people," which personally I could see myself wearing some days. But anyway, they put these on their official uniforms at the prison until attention was called to it, and then they were hauled into, the boss's office and the boss said, "You can't do that. Get those patches off of there." So they did. Next thing you know, one of these guards comes back to work with I think it was Thor's hammer or something, one of these symbols tattooed on his face, right below his eye. That's not something that you do lightly. You're not going to get a symbol like that tattooed on your face unless you're really serious about it. If you really believe strongly, or at least are very dedicated to this whole philosophy, this warrior religion. Self-reliance and don't take crap from anybody and racial purity and all this other. Some of it's honorable, some of it is complete shit. Anyway, yeah, and Richard Allen, he had these guards who were very openly displaying their dedication to this pagan ideology. And they threatened his family to the point that when Richard Allen met with his attorneys, he would ask them frantically, is my family safe? Not just are they safe, but are they alive? Is my wife alive? Because these guards were threatening him. Why would they threaten him when he's already in solitary confinement? Because they wanted him to confess to these murders. That's why. And he did. After, I think it was 3 months in solitary confinement, he did start confessing, and he confessed a lot. Problem is, a lot of these confessions were inconsistent with the crime, inconsistent with each other, and inconsistent with reality. For instance, he confessed to killing his grandchildren. He doesn't have any grandchildren. He confessed, I think it was, to killing his mother-in-law or somebody. He confessed to stabbing Abby and Libby, or shooting Abby and Libby in the back when they were not shot at all. So, no, he was messed up in the head. He was kept in solitary for a long time. Rarely got to see his wife or speak to his wife on the phone. He started talking after a while. He was at least once involuntarily injected with Haldol, which is a psychoactive antipsychotic medication, which can actually produce psychosis in some people. Bob Motta points out that on one of the confessions, Richard Allen was heard to say, okay, when he was done confessing. I think he was on the phone to his wife, possibly his mother, confessing over the phone. And when he gets done with this, he hangs up the phone and he says to someone in the room, okay, like, did I do a good enough job? Are you satisfied? He did not confess because he did the crime. He confessed because he was threatened into it. Additionally, these same guards refused to allow Richard Allen and his attorneys to have any sort of privacy when they were meeting to discuss his case at the prison, which is illegal. The state cannot listen in or watch and lip read your meetings with your attorneys. Jumping to a different section here, the timeline of the crime and the health app evidence from Libby's phone strongly suggest a car ride of about 7 minutes duration from the trails. Michelle After Dark pointed out, and she's a genius for ferreting all this out, Patrick Westphal lives about 7 miles from those trails. He and Brad Holder were good buddies. They were both Odinists and Vinlanders, and, you know, really proud of it, really big into this whole thing. You can find an interview with Patrick Westphal online. It's very coarse and hard to listen to, but it is out there. All right, I'm almost done. So, starting with that meeting that Holman had with Click, where Holman tried to put Click's mind at ease. It was very clear that the police were not going to pay any attention to this whole Rushville, Logansport, Delphi, Odinist bunch of turds. Instead, they had their guy. They had Richard Allen, family man, mild-mannered, quiet, kind of a passive guy, married a long time, no criminal history, worked at CVS, had one daughter. They decided this is the guy. They found a gun that they said matched this bullet casing. Again, bullet casing evidence was not found to be all that valuable. Gold tried to, or she did succeed in booting Baldwin and Rosie off of the defense team. It was the one and only time that she was willing to have cameras rolling in her courtroom. or in her courthouse, because she wanted to publicly pants them. I think somebody said to pants them publicly by recording on camera her disqualifying these two attorneys. She was not happy about the Franks memorandum. That really ticked her off. And she reacted to all of this basically by disallowing any mention of any third-party culpability evidence whatsoever in Richard Allen's trial. So the jury was not allowed to hear any of this stuff that I'm telling you about Brad Holder and the runes and the bloody car and Elvis Field's confessions and this thing he said about his spit to Officer Murphy. None of that was allowed at trial. Why is that, I wonder? So you people who are convinced that Richard Allen's the guy, you're happy that he's behind bars. They got the guy, right? Now you can have closure. I don't think you just want closure. Maybe you do, I don't know, but I think you guys know damn well he didn't do this. I don't know what's going on in Indiana. I know there's a lot of meth there, and there's these skinhead groups. I don't know where the two things intersect. I assume they do. To use Goal's language, I'm sure there's a nexus here. But what really interests me is, why would Nick McClelland, the prosecutor, risk his career to protect a bunch of low-life trailer trash, basically? Meth heads. Vinlanders. Petty criminals. Why protect these guys? When you have evidence, you have confessions. I mean, Brad Holder told his ex-wife, Amber, that Patrick Westphal and his crew killed the girls. Elvis Field said he was on the bridge with those girls when they were killed. You got people directly implicating themselves and implicating other people by name. Why were these guys not... Well, they were hauled in. They were interviewed. Those interviews were accidentally written over or recorded over on the DVR system. The police intentionally destroyed and hid and ignored evidence against these people. This group of trailer trash turds. I'm sorry. I live in a trailer, so I'm allowed to say that. Why? As a prosecutor, you've got a good job. You probably live in a really nice house. You're wearing nice clothes. Why are you going to protect these guys? Why not make a name for yourself busting this group of lowlifes for one of the most high-profile murder cases of the day? Why would you instead want to frame or railroad this mild-mannered 5'4" guy with no criminal record of any kind? How did they find Richard Allen? He came forward early on in the investigation when the police were begging for information. He said, "Hey, I was on the trails that day. Just wanted you to know I was one of the people there." Probably, I mean, why did he do this? Probably for the same reason we all pull over when we see an ambulance coming, even if we don't need to. Because it makes you feel like a good person when you can help out the authorities. Right? That's probably why he did that. Richard Allen is a guy who is an approval seeker. He's a dependent kind of guy. He's always looking for people to affirm his value as a human being. So, hey, police, I was there. I'm a good guy. I promise. Oh, but, you have roughly the stature of maybe bridge guy. You were wearing a blue jacket? Holy shit. You must be the guy. And you have some facial hair? Done deal. Bridge guy. Lock him up. Use your brains, people. If you can look at all this information here, that I very inexpertly and clumsily presented, and still believe that Richard Allen is the killer, I don't think you're thinking. I don't think you're intellectually honest. I don't know how you can still believe that. And if you want to say, oh, but this Odinism stuff is too much for me, okay, Odinism is ridiculous. It's every bit as ridiculous as the Manson family murders and the Matamoros killings and Paolo Mayombe and what are the other examples I gave you earlier? All these other things, the instances in which people have been found to commit crimes based upon their kind of half-assed beliefs or philosophies. It happens. It's not satanic panic. It's fucked up people with weird ideas doing evil things. And there's nothing unusual about that. You do it. You do weird things. So do I. Sometimes we all do even evil things. Because we're human beings. Possible motives by these dirtbags. Maybe this blood in, blood out idea that, you know, it's sort of a hazing thing. If you prove your loyalty to the group by participating in a crime like this, then you're in. Maybe it was hatred towards what they call race traitors, which is somebody who dates outside their race, which Abby Williams' mother was doing. There's also the fact that Liberty German's father, Derek German, was a convicted meth dealer. He'd been busted more than once on meth. I think he even stole some anhydrous ammonia from a railroad, I think it was, because that stuff is used in making meth. Anyway, he turned into a snitch. He was an informant to the police, which easily could piss off some people who have no problem at all being violent. Okay, juxtapose that against Richard Allen. Again, please. You know, we've got race hatred, we've got meth, we've got snitching to the police, we've got gang initiation by these half-wits, up against a guy who, just suddenly thought one day on a whim, I think I'll go assault a couple of girls, and oh no, there's a white van. I guess I'm not going to be able to do that. So instead, let me drain them of blood, redress one of them in the other one's, her own clothing, and then the other one's clothing, and then put some sticks over their bodies to hide them. Put those two things side by side and tell me which one makes more sense. If you have anything at all between your ears other than egg yolks, you should be able to see the picture here. But again, what is it that's causing this cover-up? Nick McClelland and Brad Holder are both 33-degree Masons, but they're not in the same lodge. Well, that's another thing. Brad Holder's son, Logan, was quote-unquote dating Abby Williams. There's a photo of them together, and I think probably most of their dating was simply texting each other, like it is most of these days. I've got 2 teenagers, and that's how it goes with them. They pretty much just text each other, and they call that talking to each other, which is a euphemism for dating, which is how it's done these days. Anyway, supposedly they were dating. So there's a connection there between Abby Williams and Brad Holder through his son Logan. So my main question here is, what is the nexus here? Why is it just Freemasonry? Is that strong enough of a bond between people to cause an established and successful professional prosecutor to ignore evidence that would convict a fellow Freemason and his buddies, and instead just basically pull this other guy out of your not out of your butt, but basically just finger this other guy because he said he was on the bridge that day. Okay, he said he was there, right? He's got a nose and two eyes and a mouth and a blue jacket, and he was wearing blue jeans. Yeah, he's got to be bridge guy because he said he was there. Or he at least has to be involved, right? There's got to be something more than Freemasonry here. Doesn't there? I mean, if you're a professional guy, you're going to put your whole career on the line to protect these dirtbags. When you could make a very easy case against them because they're naming each other, they're confessing. Why would you do that? What is at stake here? And I've wondered sometimes if Judge Gull made such a mess of this trial and was so blatantly unfair about it as a way of ensuring that Richard Allen would have really good grounds for appeal and hopefully a successful appeal while protecting herself. Basically, I did my duty. I got your guy convicted. I participated in your cover-up. I'm safe. You know, move it on down the line. Kick the can. I don't know. I hope Richard Allen has a successful appeal. I hope he is let out. I hope that the people who really did this are brought to justice. I pray for Richard Allen every day. I pray for his safety. I dread him getting sent to prison because you know what happens to child killers in prison. I don't think this guy ever harmed a human being in his life. Maybe he did. Even if he did, he sure as hell didn't do this, and you know he didn't. You can't honestly think that he did this. I don't know the guy. Maybe he's kind of a jerk. Maybe. But I don't think he killed these two girls. It's not just what I think. Look at all the reasons I've given you here. Oh, there's also, let's see, Todd Click in his report mentioned that Johnny Messer, another one of these Vinlander jerks, was offering money to someone, we're not told who, to find someone for him so that they could be injured or killed. Why? Because he wanted to do something violent. He was all fired up. I'm an Odinist. I gotta prove it. I gotta prove my dedication to Odin and Thor by killing somebody. So find me somebody to kill. Here's $10. So take away the Odinism stuff and you still got the bloody car. You still got the spit statement to Detective Murphy. You still got Elvis Field's confessions to his sisters. You still got Brad Holder telling his ex-wife that Patrick Westphal and his crew killed the girls. And now to the families of these girls. You had your chance to be innocent victims. Everybody was feeling sorry for you. You know, God bless you. I'm sorry you lost your girls. I'm truly sorry. I have kids. If one or both of them were killed, God forbid, I think I'd have to myself hunt down who did it and probably kill them. I don't think I could live with it. I don't know how you live with it, but in any case, you're also living with the fact that you know damn well that an innocent man has been convicted of this crime and will pay for it, has already paid for it. Solitary confinement for 13 months? Think about that. You're sleeping on a shitty mattress on the floor. You're eating really crappy food. You're all alone. You got nothing. You don't get to see your family. Guards treat you like shit. They're threatening you all the time. He's already been put through hell. So you families are not innocent victims any longer. If you can allow this farce to go on. I don't think you deserve any more sympathy than what you've already been given. You've got your multi-million-dollar sports park. You got people sending you letters of condolence and whatnot all the time. You're basically heroes. But you all are going to stand in front of God one day. And he was there. He saw what happened that day. He knows the truth. Just like, well, maybe you don't, but he knows the truth. We're all going to stand before God one day. We're all going to fall to our knees and confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. It's better for you than that you do it now, out of a sense of reverence, than do it later out of a sense of terror and defeat. Because you can't fight God and win. You can't fight the truth and win. Nobody ever has. If you believe that Richard Allen killed these girls, I think you're nuts. And God help you if you're concealing the truth. Maybe you don't know the truth, but you at least have got to know for sure that Richard Allen did not kill those girls. And if you're willing to live with this, if it's okay with you that an innocent man is in prison or in jail and going to be in prison, how can you live with yourself? Does it really not bother you that an innocent man is going to pay for these crimes? How can you look yourself in the mirror? How can you sleep at night? How can you feel like you deserve the food you put in your mouth? And what is under the rocks in Delphi? There's a lot of rocks that haven't been turned over, need to be turned over. There's a lot of hidden something in Delphi and the surrounding area. There's got to be something bigger going on. More than just meth. I mean, how much money really is in meth anyway? And it's basically been taken over by the Mexican cartels anyhow. What is it that is so important to protect? I don't know, but somebody does know. And one final thought, which I know this is going on way, way too long. I apologize. If you're still with me, God bless you. I don't know how you're still with me. Anyway, I have studied a great deal about satanic crime. It was one of my term papers in college. I read a lot about it. It's a fascination for me. And I've come to the conclusion over the years that there might not be an organized doctrine of satanic worship. I mean, Anton LaVey did write the Satanic Bible. And Aleister Crowley did write a lot of books. But the whole satanic thing is really nebulous. It doesn't really have a defined shape. I think what it does have is a pattern of partnership, basically, between evil spirits and people who are willing to do things to please these evil spirits in exchange for rewards. I think that these evil spirits like blood, and they like violence, and they like death, and they like depravity. And if you give them those things in a setting where you say, hey, look, I'm going to do this if you give me this, this, and this, if you give them those things, they will reward you. I don't know that there's any, central organization you can write to, and say, hey, I want in on the whole, killing girls for fame and riches thing. I don't think it works like that. I think it's more like, my buddy Rod, my buddy Joe, my buddy Bill, he did this weird thing where he killed this animal, and before he killed it, he said these weird things like, hey, I'm gonna, I don't know. Like, ancient spirit, I dedicate this to you, and, you know, I want you to reward me. Maybe. Teenagers do weird shit like that. Why wouldn't adults do weird shit like that? In any case, there's something really big and really rotten here. And I hope that it gets uncovered. I hope somebody makes a really good movie about all of this while I'm still alive. I think it would make a fantastic story once we know the truth. I think that it should be a combination of something like Silence of the Lambs and that movie they made about Richard Jewell, the guy who was falsely accused of the Olympics bombing in Atlanta. Put those two together, I think you've got the makings of a great movie. But you also need something where the real bad guys are found. Throw in some NYPD Blue, maybe. Greatest cop show ever made. Anyway, I finally exhausted all the stuff I have to say, and hopefully now I can think about other things and accomplish other things in my life. I hope somebody out there hears me. Goodbye.